Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! This is about the time when a woman, who I will call Karen for the sake of the story, decided that she has more rights to my dead friend's dogs than anyone else. This all happened in our small town where everyone pretty much knows everyone, or at least knows of them. My friend Owen was one of those people who you couldn't help but love. He had a big heart, especially for animals. He had two dogs, Ricky and Pookie, who were his world. They were these adorable Labradors, one chocolate and the other black, with the most loving eyes you could imagine. Owen passed away unexpectedly, and it was a shock to all of us. He was young, healthy, and one of those people you would never expect to lose so soon. A week after Owen's funeral, I went over to his house. His family had asked me to help sort through his things since I was one of his closest friends. While I was there, I fed Ricky and Pookie and spent some time with them. They were noticeably sad, missing Owen. I was in the backyard with the dogs when I first met Karen. She marched into the backyard like she owned the place. Karen was a middle-aged woman with a stern look and a "can I speak to the manager" haircut. She introduced herself as the head of a local dog rescue organization. She said she heard about Owen's passing and came to take Ricky and Pookie into her care. I was taken aback. "I'm sorry, who gave you permission to do this?" I asked. Karen rolled her eyes. "Look, it's common procedure. When an owner dies, we rehome the pets. It's better for them. But Owen's family hasn't decided what to do with them yet," I said, trying to keep my cool. "That's not your concern. I'm doing what's best for the dogs," Karen snapped, moving towards Ricky and Pookie with leashes in hand. I stepped in front of her. "I am not letting you take them. You have no right," Karen scoffed. "I'll be back with the authorities. You'll see." She left, but the whole encounter left me uneasy. I immediately called Owen's sister, Emily, and told her what happened. Emily was furious. "Those dogs are staying in the family. We've already discussed it. Who does that woman think she is?" A few days later, things took a turn for the worse. I was at my place when Emily called me, panic in her voice. "The dogs are gone. Karen came with a police officer and took them." I couldn't believe it. How could this happen? I promised Emily I would help her sort this out. My first step was to confront Karen. I went to the dog rescue, determined to get Ricky and Pookie back. Karen was there, and the moment she saw me, her face twisted in a smug smile. "I told you I'd be back with the authorities. The dogs are now mine." I was fuming. "They are not your dogs. They are part of Owen's family. You had no right to take them." Karen laughed. "I have every right. I have connections, and I know the law. You're just a nobody." And that's when I decided to fight back. I wasn't going to let Karen get away with this. The next few days were a blur of activity. I reached out to everyone I could think of who might help. Lawyers, animal rights groups, even local news outlets. The story of Karen taking Ricky and Pookie under dubious circumstances started to gain traction in the community. People were outraged, and the pressure was mounting on Karen and her rescue operation. Meanwhile, I kept visiting Karen's rescue, trying to see Ricky and Pookie, but I was always turned away. Karen seemed to enjoy the power she had over the situation, smirking each time she saw me. Then a breakthrough happened. One of Karen's volunteers, who I will call Sarah, contacted me secretly. She was uncomfortable with how Karen handled Ricky and Pookie's case and offered to help. Sarah revealed that Karen often bent the rules to take in animals she thought would bring in more donations. She also admitted that Karen had bragged about using her connections to manipulate the situation. Having this information now, I met with a lawyer who specializes in animal rights. He was appalled by the story and agreed to take on a case pro bono. We started by filing a formal complaint against Karen and her organization, detailing the unethical and potentially illegal actions she had taken. The legal wheels started to turn, but time was of the essence. Ricky and Pookie needed to be in a loving home, not caught up in a legal battle. I organized a peaceful protest outside Karen's rescue, drawing more attention to the case. The local news picked up the story, and public opinion began to sway heavily against Karen. Then came the day of reckoning. The police, having investigated the claims against Karen, arrived at her rescue with a warrant. They found several irregularities in her records, including forged documents related to Ricky and Pookie's adoption. Karen was arrested on spot, charged with fraud and theft, and the look on her face when she was led away in handcuffs was just a mix of shock and indignation. She kept shouting about how she was a victim, how everyone would regret this. Typical Karen. Ricky and Pookie were safely returned to Owen's family. Emily wept with joy when she saw them, hugged them tightly. The dog seemed to understand that they were finally home. Karen's rescue was shut down and her reputation was tarnished beyond repair. Once again, I have an adventure to tell you all about a trip to a store that has a name that rhymes with small fart. There is me, my son, I shall call son, entitled Karen, we will call her Karen, store employee and manager. Today, a few hours ago, my son took me to a small fart to do some shopping. Yes, I know, I'm a small fart Martian. Shopping itself was uneventful for the most part until the Karen of the story came into the picture. My son was doing his job and helping his mother, me, shop by getting things down off a shelf and placing them in a cart, being as I am permanently wheelchair bound. I was reading off a list of shopping, he was getting the items, and we stopped a moment in the frozen food section. He retrieved an item or two on my list and put them in the cart. At that moment, we stopped shopping for a moment while I took out an inhaler. I have troubles breathing at times, and that's when we heard a loud snapping of fingers and a loud, rude ahem, then a dreaded loud voice. "Now that you're done helping her, you can help me with my shopping." My son turned. "I don't work here, lady. I was and am shopping with my mother. You want help? Go find an actual employee and go away." "You work here," she screeched. "Otherwise, you wouldn't be helping her shop." "Again, lady, I don't work here. Want help? Go find an employee and stop bothering us," my son said. She started yelling. "I'm getting you fired! Manager! Manager!" At her yelling, an employee came to see what the yelling was about and asked if she could help. "Yes!" She deliberately dragged the S on the word. "Your employee has been extremely rude and threatened me when I asked for help." The employee looked confused. "Ma'am, he doesn't work here." "Yes, he does. You're just trying to cover for him. Now go get me your manager. Now." She walked over to a post and pressed a red button on a display on it. "Manager needed at the frozen food aisle," she said into the speaker, also on a post. "Be right there," a voice said back. "Now we will see how long you're employed here." Karen said that she stood there with a smug look on her face. Before long, the manager arrived. Before he could even ask what was going on, the Karen launched into a heavily embellished tale, painting herself as a victim and demanding compensation for the horrible insults she had endured and demanding both my son and the employee be fired immediately. I remember the manager subtly said, "You're banned from small farts if I remember correctly," but got interrupted by her screeching. The response of the manager was a wonder to behold and caught us all by surprise. "Shut up," he yelled at the Karen. "This is the second time, and the reason you were banned for 6 months to begin with, harassing other customers and making up wild tales and trying to get one of my employees fired." She opened her mouth, but the manager beat her to it. I said, "Shut up. Now leave your cart where it is and get the hell out of my store. And don't ever set foot in it again, or I will trespass you and have you jailed." She stood there, mouth flapping. I said, "Get the hell out. Now." In a quieter tone now, "Or shall I call the police and have you escorted out the front door in cuffs?" The Karen took off running as if the devil himself had come in pursuit of her. It was an unbelievable but very satisfying thing to have witnessed. The manager turned to us. "I am so sorry I had to endure that and hear me yelling, but she had that coming. And this is not the first time she had harassed other shoppers. Please allow me to do something for you for your troubles." When we left, we not only had a 25% discount on shopping, at his insistence, although we told him it wasn't necessary, we were each given a $50 gift card to use as we see fit on our next visit to the store. And I have a new hero to enjoy talking to whenever I go shopping there again. My sister-in-law, 33 female, was visiting us from out of town and staying with us, 35 male and 35 female, for a week between Christmas and New Year. We were supposed to go out last night, but I got into a silly fight with my wife, so I stormed off. I went home by myself. I won't get into the details of this argument because I accept the bulk of the culpability for it, and it's not the point of this ITA question. It's probably worth noting for context that there has been simmering tension between me and my wife lately, to the point she brought up if it would make sense for us to take time apart. When I arrived home, I concluded it would be best for me to leave the apartment for the rest of sister-in-law's stay, which had another 48 hours remaining as her flight could not be changed. We're in a one-bedroom NYC apartment, we still stay in our living room, so it's impossible not to be in each other's face all the time. I believe sister-in-law would feel uncomfortable due to the tension, and my continued presence would effectively force her out of our place, which I considered would be unfair to her. Besides, sister-in-law is currently a grad student living off a student loan with a ridiculously high interest rate, and she would be paying exorbitant hotel rates in NYC during New Year's Eve weekend, whereas I have enough credit card points to make the out-of-pocket expenses a minimal consideration. Therefore, I texted my wife as follows: I am leaving the house at 9 p.m. and plan to return on Jan 1. Let's talk in person then. Your sister is welcome to stay until then. At 8:45 p.m. I had finished packing my overnight bag when, to my surprise, my wife and sister-in-law arrived at the apartment. Sister-in-law accused me of being extremely rude, taking particular umbrage with the last sentence of my text. Well, I said that out of consideration for you. I admit I'm at fault for this fight with your sister, so I was merely offering to minimize the inconvenience to you, our guest, by leaving instead. I responded. Sister-in-law declared, I'm an adult and you do not tell me whether to stay or leave. With that, sister-in-law grabbed her things and ventured off into the December night. A single woman with no plans in a city she is unfamiliar with, which is exactly what I feared and had tried to prevent. My wife is now mad at me for giving sister-in-law no option but to leave by saying she is welcome to stay. I am baffled, but it was intended to be anything but that. Am I the jerk for this sentence? I could have handled the situation better overall, but the sisters are convinced that my saying sister-in-law is welcome to stay is the chief offense of all. A second related ITA question: after sister-in-law exited, I wondered aloud to my wife, well, should I at least offer to book your sister a hotel room? But since sister-in-law had lived to make the point that she's an independent woman, I did not pursue this option further, and now my wife is also angry about this. Am I the jerk for not reaching out to sister-in-law and offering to book her a hotel room? And now some comments on the post. Someone saying, you're not the jerk. Haven't read OP's comments about what happened at the music event leading up to the immature and melodramatic reaction of OP's wife. Seats cannot be changed at a sold-out venue. Duh. It's clear that OP's marriage dynamic is unhealthy. OP's note to the wife, which she chose to show sister-in-law, was perfectly fine. OP's wife was spoiling for a fight, and any comments by OP or lack of comment, however worded, was going to do. Personally, think OP's attempt at a separation is a great idea to use the opportunity to seek couples therapy and improve the marriage dynamic. Otherwise, it's going to get worse from here on. A second commenter adds, not the jerk. I was fully expecting you to say something like, my wife is getting a hotel room because she's mad at me, but I offered to let my sister-in-law stay at the apartment with me because it would be easier for her. Now, that would have been firmly in the jerk territory, but this is very much a case of mental instability is hereditary. Might I recommend a good divorce lawyer in your area? A third commenter goes with, everyone's a jerk. You all sound like highly strung, poor communicators. Your sister-in-law was wrong, it's your apartment. It's partially up to you whether she stays or not. Her being an adult has nothing to do with it. She also cut off her nose to spite her face by leaving. It sounds like some time apart will be good for you and your wife. I had recently partnered with a small production facility in my area. Our contract was based on capital investment along with designing/implementing new automation processes. 2-year outlook finished in 8 months. Was a typical small production facility composed of 50 production workers through 2 shifts of 12 hours that ran 2 days on then 3 days off. Also had 2 production supervisors for each shift and 1 maintenance supervisor for each shift. The people and their attitude is ultimately what led to my decision to be more than an outside contractor for this company until I worked the night shift for a week due to shutdowns that needed to occur to implement certain line upgrades. This is where I met him. We will call him Richard Head. Richard seemed like a nice guy in our first few encounters, and then I heard him in his element directing his maintenance crew at night over the radio. He would belittle this group of guys who were there to do a set task list every night for whatever machinery they were doing preventative maintenance on. Unless something broke on a line which would require attention first, obviously. I have never heard grown men spoken to like this and never heard any nasty remarks back or defending themselves. He would call them stupid on a radio if they were having trouble troubleshooting a problem. Call some fat and lazy, called one black guy the N-word, and the guy had been there since they opened the doors, and to be honest, made me want to rescind any commitment I have ever made to this company. When I escalated this to the plant manager, he assured me that it was friendly banter and they rarely had complaints against him. True, because anyone who ever did so in confidence of anonymity was always outed and singled out until they were terminated by him. Since no one was going to listen to me, I decided to do my due diligence and started to document everything I heard on the radio with a date and time, witnesses to the treatment and what rights the individual was having violated due to our state and federal outlines. I made this spreadsheet my entire time in the shift, documenting every personal account I witnessed as well. Harassment is a major problem with industry work, but the one that I have learned is a company killer is retaliation. If you can prove that, then they stand no chance. I saw him one night tearing down this 50-year-old man who requested 2 days off to the point I wanted to lose my cool, but knew it would ruin all the information I was gathering. Days off were because his nephew was just in a car accident 2 days prior and had to have multiple reconstructive surgeries scheduled. I knew that now was the time to move on everything. I rounded up all the maintenance guys and shared all my documentation with them. They didn't realize the importance of this information like I had. They just said nothing will change. Nothing changed because no one treats an issue as an issue if you come with incorrect, non-detailed information. The fact that he used the radio so much was a godsend that they didn't see as well. When he spoke this way to people, he must not have ever realized that there are other supervisors on shift, and that they in fact unintentionally became the strongest witnesses in the cases, especially when you have some audio recordings verifying the accounts. They have no choice but to acknowledge what they have heard. Each worker took their logs, and even though I have a capital/time investment in this facility, I urged them to a minimum to petition to have this man removed or to threaten legal action. Once they coordinated the day to expose all this, it was like watching a sports movie when the underdogs take the championship and get the girl at the same time. Not only did the man finally get fired, but the entire atmosphere around the place changed more than I could imagine. Older machines ran the best they have ever ran in my time there, and people loved coming to work again. They also put a placard on my door for when I come in about a week later. Number 1 boss. But the boss was crossed out, and hand engraved under it was the word badass. I obviously removed it from my door, but I put it in my home office, and it's probably the best thing I have ever received from a facility. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.